During the week, we reported on the show that Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk and Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks and some former Bernie Sanders campaign managers had started this movement or organization, I should say, called Justice Democrats. And I'm subscribed to this channel called Sane Progressive because it's a pretty good channel, exposes a lot of the truth. And I saw this video, and there are two videos now because she decided to respond to kind of build off of her previous video, which is kind of ironically longer. But she basically goes into it with like pretty much a sledgehammer, like right from the beginning of the first video. she's so pissed. She just like says, she's like, "Oh, you're just completely wrong right from the jump." So this is interesting because I really do like this Sane Progressive. Like, I really like the channel. Like, it's awesome because it is one of the outlets you can actually find a lot of exposés on voter fraud and different things like the whole Russian hacking thing. She did a good job of kind of exposing what the real truth was instead of what the mainstream media was kind of propagating and all that. But this is interesting to me, okay, because it just dawned on me that the political spectrum on the left is just such a civil war right now. I didn't realize how deep it was, because you have what I would call, the Hillary voter / corporate Democrat type of people, and then you have the progressives, and what you would call it depends who you would call a progressive, and then you have people who. Or, okay, here, let me say, okay, there's corporate Democrats as Hillary supporters. Then there's Bernie Sanders / progressives. And then you have, I guess, people like Sane Progressive, because a lot of people do agree with her, as you can see in the video and the comments and likes and stuff. But it never dawned on me how deep this was. How many different people have different thought process on what to do to fix the problem. And it's very interesting when you look at it. So the main points that she makes in her videos is that, and here's what I'm going to say, this is the main thing, and it's you can't vote them out if you can't vote them in. So what her point here is that there's massive election fraud and a lot of fraud that goes on, and illegitimate voting, or people's votes being purged, or and it's totally true too. I mean, there's countless times during the primary where in a Sanders majority state that the polls had, there would be like one or two polling places with a big population. I think that happened in like Arizona, and in California, same shit happened. So yeah, the election integrity is really not there, and the voter fraud is really bad too. And they'll have, I remember with the caucuses in, I think it was Iowa, and it was that basically they would have the caucuses, but what they would do is they would wait super long, because the Hillary people who were leading that caucus would wait superbly long until it was so late that the Sanders supporter would just leave, because why the fuck am I going to be here if you're going to wait till 9, 10, 11? So there's a lot of shady shit that goes on. And I remember because I remember being very up to date with this, they flipped a coin if it was tied to figure out who wins. We're electing presidents and awarding delegates by a flip of a fucking coin? Okay. Let's move on, though. So what her main point is that because of the election fraud, there's no way to vote them in, so that this whole organization is bullshit and it's fraud. Don't give them a dime. And she seems to kind of imply that they're making something, and that as if it's not going to go to solely the people who they're going to campaign. Now, of course, if something came out like, oh, they did take it somehow, which I don't think they are, and they've stated, if that does happen, obviously they deserve to be defamed, but They have promised not to, and you have no evidence that they are taking it for their personal gain. And if you read through the comments, whether or not she implies it or not, it seems that her audience and her watchers have taken it that way. That's what they've understood. So that is something that she's kind of pushing out a little bit. So also, it's basically this idea that it's just not going to work, period. And she really goes into just like bash the fuck out of Bernie Sanders, like bash the living shit out of Bernie Sanders. And I was surprised because I thought that with all the systemic biases and all the fraudulent acts and stuff like that, like I thought there's no way you could bash him if you agree with his policies. But apparently, I mean, she's going in. So I was a little shocked at that point, but yeah, he didn't necessarily bring up the fraud that much, because it's like, if something is not shown in the media, it is not necessarily normalized, and plus for him, it's not like he's ran for president multiple times, or if he's like this massive juggernaut with a bunch of smart people who are massively experienced in politics or specifically presidential campaigns that are telling him what to do, and advisors. I'm sure he has some advisors, but if they're everyday people, you're not necessarily going to get the same type of information. But so what all I'm trying to say here is, and I really respect Sane Progressive and her channel. I think it's great. But I think that this civil war is getting a little too deep. A little too deep. There has to be a line drawn to the point where you go. And she somewhat brings up third parties as well. And I thought they made a good point with the third parties. It's like, he made a good analogy. And I know analogies are stupid, so you can decide whether it's good or not. That's up to you and your opinion. But he said, why would you take a sledgehammer and hit your knee with it and then run a marathon? So basically, the systemic biases against third parties won't be solved by people trying to make a new third party, because they're just going to keep losing. What they can do, though, is kind of what FDR kind of did this too, and it's just you take over the Democratic Party and transform it and change it. So I think that at the moment, that is the most feasible way. I think that that's the most feasible way. Now, should there be more attention paid to election fraud to fix that problem? Of course it should be. I totally agree with that. That is a worthy criticism. I agree with that. But at the same time, their main thing is to get a constitutional amendment to take out corporate money from the people, or from the politicians. So once you do that, you make it a more leveled playing field for everyday people. Once you're able to do that, that makes it a more leveled playing field than it would be before. And once you get the first round in and you start to get it in, the gerrymandering and things like that happen, those things that are happening because of that, those will lessen and it will stop happening. It'll progress in the other way by making it stop happening. So I think that the criticism for not paying enough attention to voter fraud is fine. I think that it's good. Yeah, we should pay more attention to that. We should make that more of a focus. But once you say don't donate a dime, I don't know what to tell you. I don't agree. That's all I'm going to say. I respectfully disagree. Because this is a good opportunity to finally get progressive candidates in. And she keeps proclaiming that Bernie Sanders' campaign was somehow a fail when he got over 40% of the votes. And he got something like, I think 24 states or something like that. The campaign was not a fail. He got massive stats, broke records for money. And it's that, yeah, you're bringing up examples of local biases and stuff, but if we can get the people in by taking out the money from the politicians, and also once we push hard enough to get those first round of people in who are legitimate progressives, those people will then be able to actually change the process. So we need to strive for that. And this idea that our whole political system and the whole system is just a loss, and hey, we should sign petitions for state election fraud. I think that's dumb, because then we're stabbing ourselves. We're stabbing ourselves. That is what we shouldn't be doing. We should be empowering ourselves to further the progressive cause and the progressive ideology and what we want to do, the progressive policy positions. So it's not being, other than the wanting to make election fraud a bigger issue. I think that what she's doing is quite counterproductive. And I haven't really seen this before, but her audience is totally different in terms of, because there's the whole mainstream media, which no one likes except for some people who aren't really, that into, news and stuff. They don't know about independent media. Then you got the independent media. I don't really like the Young Turks, but you have to respect whatever they're doing because they're doing well. And then I like Kyle Kalinske. I like Jimmy Dore. I like these. And then there's Debbie. There's Sane Progressive, who's like anti everyone. Like, let's shoot down everybody. And it's like, I didn't even know that this kind of idea existed, because there's people defaming Kyle for getting a new studio with fan raised money. It's like, I don't understand. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. It's just, this is very counterproductive. We need to work hard to get progressive candidates in. And sure, we should make election fraud a bigger issue, but defaming them completely and saying, no, don't donate a dime, you are being counterproductive, and I just disagree with you respectfully.